Man, so close, but also not really that close. 2019 delivered an absolutely deflating, gut-wrenching, kick you while you're down kind of end to GWS's season, which was a year that otherwise was quite encouraging. The league's newest team made their first ever grand final appearance on the back of a stellar finals campaign that saw them pick up wins over the Bulldogs, Brisbane and Collingwood. Yet, we all know how it ended now. They ran into Richmond. Not just any old Richmond, but Richmond who conjured the perfect storm of grand final glory to just destroy GWS on the day, and particularly after the first quarter. We all know how it panned out. I'll dive into that all a little deeper in this review, but for now, we'll try and track back over the regular season and look at some of the highlights and lowlights of GWS throughout the first 23 rounds before we get stuck into the finals. One thing I wanted to stress in this review is how hard it was to give a grade to GWS. I mean, they were stellar and superb in some patches, and then just not great in others. Their finals campaign was brilliant until the moment it mattered most. So it's really hard. Is it a pass? Is it a failure? I don't really know. I went through the review, and I guess you'll have to bear with me to find out. But before we get stuck into the regular season, as we have done with all of these reviews, we're going to take you all the way back to the preseason. What was the expectation on GWS? How were they supposed to go? Where were they supposed to finish? And how deep could they bat into the postseason? It was a bit of a mixed bag. After losing Dylan Shiel, a lot of punters thought that they were ready to slide down the ladder and probably weren't as good as they were the previous year, where they hadn't even made a preliminary final. So sort of teetering on the cusp of the 8. Others still thought, hey, this side's got some quality in the midfield, they've definitely got quality up front, and their defense is going to be stout, so why wouldn't they be a top 4 contender? It was kind of mixed, and the general consensus was I think they would finish about 6th, which was pretty much about right. However, any of those punters that thought they were going to show some regression were pretty much put back in their place in round 1. The Giants came out with an emphatic win over Essendon, a 72-point drubbing that sent them straight to the top of the ladder, and pretty much put a hold to any claim that they would take a dive down the ladder. But busting Essendon and your old teammate Dylan Shiel is one thing, and then travelling over to the West to play West Coast, whole different ballgame. They were belted in round 2 and came back to reality, and all of a sudden we were back on the edge of, is this a good team? Is this a bad team? Is it just a middle of the pack team? Who knows? Round 2 is not usually something you put much stock in, much like round 1, but one thing we did learn is that the GWS Giants still had their tag of not being able to perform on the big stage. They couldn't come to Perth and get the job done against West Coast like they were supposed to, and beating the Bombers just seemed like a bit of a flat track bully move at that point in time. Fortunately, they'd bounced back with some amazing wins over Richmond and Geelong, but that win against the Cats came at a price, with Callan Ward's season coming to a close with a knee injury and dealing a crucial blow to their midfield. Well, one we thought would be crucial at the time. Things only got even grimmer the following week when they were doused by Fremantle in Canberra. GWS had previously owned this venue. I think they were undefeated there before the Dockers came to town in round 5. And Freo put them to the sword, and again we were back on the cusp of not knowing where GWS stood among the ranks of elite teams. Luckily for the Giants, after that Freo loss, they'd pile up wins in 5 of their next 6 games in a run that basically, I think, defined their season. From there, they were able to drop the odd game without ever really falling out of contention, and they really gave themselves an early shot in the arm to become a finals contender. And all of a sudden, we knew that this team was bound for finals, and we were a little more aware to where they were at. Their bye came in round 14, and by then, they were actually sitting in the top 2 and had entrenched themselves in the top 4. So things were looking good and sitting pretty for GWS at that point in time. But the back half of the season wasn't so great. They went down with 3 straight losses coming out of their bye to Essendon, Brisbane and Richmond, and all of a sudden they were sort of on the cusp sitting at 9 and 7. That stretch, teamed with some bad form towards the finals, basically eliminated their hopes of top 4, and they were destined for a 6th place finish. Good enough for a home elimination final, and then ensuring they would be on the road for any finals to come after that. But the form they headed into the finals on was iffy to say the most about it. Directly, they'd come in on the back of a belting to the Gold Coast, which, yeah, is great, but if you disregard that, 2 losses to the Bulldogs and the Hawks was still kind of lingering over them like some dark cloud. But I guess the actual players just didn't feel that pressure in-house. They came into the finals and they were spitting fire, destroying the Bulldogs outfit that had actually killed them just about a fortnight prior. Throughout the finals, they weren't even distracted by the Toby Green saga, which was by far the most entertaining thing to happen in the finals campaign. After getting tangled up in an innocuous off-the-ball incident with Marcus Bontempelli in the first week of finals, Toby Green was let off and free to play against Brisbane. And of course, in true Toby Green fashion, conjured up a best on-ground performance, 30 touches, 2 goals, leads his team to a win, a 3-point win at that, and they progressed to a preliminary final. But again, in true Toby Green fashion, he learned nothing. He got caught up in another innocuous off-the-ball incident, this time with Lions midfielder Lachie Neale. And this time, after a ton of public outcry, the match review came down hard on him. Even after appealing their decision, he was still set to miss the preliminary final clash with Collingwood, which just seemed like an absolutely detrimental blow to the team at that point, given the form that Toby was in. No phase to the Giants. They came out on fire at the start of the preliminary final, dismantled Collingwood early and put in an outstanding defensive effort in the final few minutes to hang on for a crucial win, securing their first ever grand final berth. And that's pretty much where the season just came to an end. Okay, fair enough. They were good for one quarter against Richmond, but after that, this got ugly. A Dusty Martin goal at the end of that first quarter just seemed to sap all the life out of the Giants, and from there, it was a landslide for Richmond. There was no stopping them. They did exactly what they want, and GWS could do nothing to stop them. They were completely powerless. The big sound from the west side of town just never showed up, and it was happy times at Tigerland all over again. But with all of that said, before I move on to the grading, I actually want to spend some time to applaud some individual efforts that I just thought were outstanding from the Giants across 2019. First of all, Jeremy Cameron kicking 67 regular goals to take out his first Coleman medal. Excellent. I love the way he operates in the forward line, and he is clearly the league's most potent forward this year. He brought absolute reliability to their side and was able to perform week in, week out, no matter who his opponent was. Secondly, Tim Taranto. Man, what a way to have a breakout season. The third-year superstar ranked fourth in the league for total disposals and was 19th on average per game. Top 20. Huge for a player of his age and huge for someone who had to step in and fill a midfield void left by Callum Ward and Dylan Shiel. And he stepped up perfectly. He was also second in the league in total tackles and another top 20 appearance in total clearances. But more to the point, he showed up when it mattered. Tim Taranto was easily GWS's best on ground in the grand final and could actually have taken out the medal the Norm Smith medal, had his side actually got closer to winning the game. There was no question it had to be a Richmond player, and there was almost no question it had to be Dusty Martin. But Tim Taranto, you could make a case he was the best player out of the entire 44 that stepped on that field. Lastly, I wanted to applaud the season that Stephen Coniglio had. Before injury cut him down and he missed the finals campaign, he was on fire throughout the regular season and a pillar of consistency again. So hopefully he can get back healthy for 2020 and have another big year. So I guess to return to the point of this video, how do you grade them? Again, I don't really know, but I think it's more of a positive than a negative. The criteria being that these reviews are done on the entire season and not just on one day. Yeah, it was a good year. If this was just graded on grand final day, it's a big fat F. They stunk up the joint. But I'm actually feeling quite comfortable about giving GWS an A on their 2019 season. This club has already been a strong ambassador for footy in a state that's dominated by another sport. They're living up to their end of the bargain and they're actually producing at a really high rate. And to make a grand final only drives that point even more. So you know what? I applaud that. And I totally feel comfortable in giving them an A for that. They themselves will know more than anyone that what they dished up in the grand final is beyond unacceptable. But when you look at that finals campaign prior, it was on track to be one of the better finals campaigns that we've ever seen. It was an amazing string of wins, particularly the Brisbane win and the Collingwood win, against opponents that they probably just weren't supposed to beat. So again, to reiterate, I'm happy to give GWS an A. Clearly it's not an A+, given that they produced that in the grand final, but it was a good year nonetheless. So if we look ahead to 2020, where does GWS go from here and how do they push further and actually claim a premiership? I don't think they particularly need to add anything exuberant to make that happen. I feel like they've already got the pieces in place and they're going to keep the bulk of their side together, which should really help them out. They're strong enough as it is, and hopefully the return of a healthy Canelio and the continued development of Taranto and Harry Himmelberg up forward can really push them into another upper echelon. Also, with the likes of Lockie Whitfield at just 26 years old next season, I think the sky's the limit for this team. While this could shape to be one of the quieter off seasons that GWS has ever had since they entered the league, they are going to acquire Sam Jacobs. Well, they're likely to acquire Sam Jacobs from Adelaide at this point, which would be kind of a boost to their ruck stocks, even though he's not any longer in the prime of his career. I mean, they made a grand final with a wearisome Shane Mumford sort of just loping around the field and doing the best that he can each week. Who's to say that Sam Jacobs isn't a serious upgrade for them at that position now? Other than that, they'll probably continue to look to the draft and their academy to boost their stocks and just keep doing what they're doing. They're a successful club at the moment, and they've had some sustained success. Now, it's time to reach the ultimate success, but that doesn't mean you have to stray from the path that you're on. I've got absolutely no reason to believe this team's going to bottom out. So, for mine, they're still a finals team next year, and they're still going to be around the mark of pushing into the top 4. I guess that's that for my review on GWS, and in fact, all my reviews altogether. This has been a really fun series to bring you guys, doing reviews club by club. If you haven't checked out the previous ones, please you can go back and have a look at them. That would be great, as myself, Ryan, and Joel have really enjoyed piecing it together. Speaking of Ryan, he's actually going to be bringing you the last of the reviews when he goes through the Premiers, Richmond, shortly. But for now, since it's goodbye from me, I'd like to take this time to just thank all of you guys who've clicked on a review or watched a review along the way. You've made it pretty worthwhile, and it's been, like I said, a lot of fun bringing it to you. So if you did enjoy this video, please leave a big thumbs up and subscribe to AFL Access for any future off-season content that we may be bringing you. And just keep your eyes peeled. For now, catch ya.